What is up, you guys? Welcome to the Coachable Podcast. I am your host, Tori Gordon, and today I am joined by Sylvester McNutt III, who's traveled all the way from Arizona to be with us right here in the studio in Las Vegas. I'm so excited to have this conversation. If you don't know who he is the host of the Free Your Energy podcast. He is a best-selling author, the author of 10 books, including Care Package and an upcoming release that's going to be incredible, all about how you can live the life that you deserve. I'm so excited to have him here because this man comes highly praised and by people that I respect and that I admire. Brandon Collinsworth, who's been on the show multiple times. You guys know he's a dear brother of mine. He hangs out with this guy. So I know he's someone I want to know and get in the energy of and spend time with, because I think you and I both know how important who's in your inner circle is. And the people you spend time around, the people that are influencing you based on who's in your ear, what they're saying, their energy, their goals, what they're laughing at, what's interesting to them says a lot about who you are. And so the fact that you're sitting here says so much about you before you even open your mouth. And you're a man of many words. You write so poetically, so powerfully, right into the hearts of people. And I just want to, get to know you a little bit and hear about your journey and how you've gotten to a place as a father, as a writer, as a podcast host, but as a really one of the best in the game mindset and performance coaches out there. Is like, you don't get there overnight. So I'd love to just hear a little bit about your background and just what makes you you.
Yeah, it all starts with my parents coming from Chicago, and excuse me, I'm just coming from Chicago, and my grandparents coming from Mississippi, and so my grandparents migrated from Mississippi to Chicago in the early 50s and 60s. And there was a lot of turbulence going on in Chicago at the time. At that time, the country was segregated. You know, it was black people stay over here. You know, it wasn't like it is now. And so because we didn't personally experience that, we have to imagine the type of conflict and stress that comes with that, you know, being targeted because of just the way you look.
Of course.
But my grandparents were resilient. You know, I asked my uncle one day, I said, hey, you know, why did you guys leave Mississippi? Nobody ever told me why you guys went from Mississippi to Chicago. And he said that at the time in Mississippi, what was happening is they were lynching black people just for being black. And my grandparents wanted to give their 6 kids, you know, opportunity to live, to thrive, you know. And it was heard that Chicago was like a bustling area that was safe where families could go. And so they made that great migration to Chicago to create family. That's where my mom was born. But what's interesting is all 4 of my grandparents were from Mississippi. They all migrated to Chicago. And then my mother and father were born in Chicago and met there, you know, and they met in high school. And, you know, it's one of those things where I look back, like, it's like destiny, you know, it's like fate for them to meet. And then, you know, I was born there. And so for me, the way that I am now and what I've been able to do in my life really is owed to my ancestors, you know. And like when I think back to my early childhood, it was a lot of learning and a lot of development. You know, my mother was like, hey, you have to learn, you have to be smart, you have to know how to speak. Like, she wanted to equip me with all the skills so I could survive in the world. But then my father was more like, you have to be strong, you have to be fast, you have to be quick. He wanted to equip me more with the physical skills to be able to thrive. And so both of my parents were really like masters of education in their, you know, specific fields when it came to teaching me, you know, as their son. And I feel like I was able to take, you know, the good from both of them. Now, you know, it wasn't all good now. Okay, we can get into that. It wasn't all good. Yeah. It was some problems too, some problems and some stress. But I was able to use the good that they gave me to be my North Star. Like, all right, this is the type of person I'm going to be.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you have that connection to your ancestry and to your lineage. And, you know, I think so many of us don't know about where we come from and the history of not just our parents, but their parents and their parents. And it's interesting. I was also born in Mississippi.
Oh, okay.
Grew up in Alabama. And so, you know, it was actually only in the last, you know, few years through some of my psychedelic experiences that I have connected back to my lineage, and it was actually losing my mother that led me to ask questions about my family line, about things that I didn't know about, to get to know myself. And I think for people who want to start to understand themselves more deeply, we have to look at our families.
You have to.
We have to.
You have to. And it's hard work, but you have to go in, and like one thing that's really happened for me and my mom, like our relationship is, it's not perfect, but it's a really good relationship, and she's, after all the things that she went through, all the trauma she had, the pain she had, the years of conflict that we had, where I didn't want to show up in relationship with her because I felt like she wasn't capable. It's like to be at a point now where she shows up how I need her to, after demanding her to do it, but also being patient with her, to get through her own life. It's like, it's just a beautiful thing to be 38 and to still have my father pass, but to still have my mom, to still be able to call her and be like, hey, I'm going through this, or this is on my mind. Like it's truly a blessing.
Yeah.
But like I had to confront the issues that we had, and I feel like so many people are like, oh, well, I don't want to talk to my dad because he did this to me, or I don't want to talk to my mom because she thinks this way or she acts this way. And it's just like, dude, if your parents are alive, you have to try. You have to try. And like, I know it's hard, but we're sitting here and like, we don't have both our parents, and as the older you get, the less you have with them,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I heard Jesse Itzler say one time something about, if you see your parents, if you don't live in the same town or as your parents, and you maybe see them twice a year, if you travel for holidays, if you have kids, maybe you see them 3, 4, 5 times a year. Okay. And you think about that. Okay. Say it's 2 times a year and they're 65 years old and maybe they live to 80. Okay. If 2 times a year times 15 more years, how many, you might get to see them 30 more times.
Man, it's crazy.
Right. Yeah. And then you think about that, you're like, there's an urgency there that all of a sudden you live with, an understanding. And that was one of the things I think death has taught me most, is like the urgency to live now, to live in this moment, and not to put things off and not to prolong things and say, I'll do it later. It's like, do it now. If you have the bandwidth and the time and the desire, like, and if it's important to you, make it a priority. And I'm curious for you guys, because I love what you're sharing about your mom. And I think it's so relatable. And I know there are people who have challenging relationships with their parents, and they're either kind of defeated by that and they're like, I don't want to be anything like my parents. I'm going to completely go in the other direction. Or sometimes we idolize our parents in different ways and we see them as, our first example of God and like who's, our idea of that. But is there anything you would share with people who have that desire, but they're on their personal healing journey. They're growing in their consciousness and their evolution. And they're like, I want everyone else to come along with me. But there are people, whether it's their parents or other people that are close in their lives, that seem to be on their own timeline, which is completely fine. How do you have empathy and compassion with someone like your parents and give them the grace of having their own journey while also setting boundaries that you need for yourself?
Yeah. So it's fragile.
Yeah.
It's fragile work, but it's deep work. I call it the great work in my book that's going to come out in August. I talk about the great work. And there's always this like great work that we have to do to be in alignment with what we want, right? And so if you're saying to yourself, I want to heal the relationship with my parents, it's hard. It's hard because they have the habits that they've been in for years. They have their wounds. They have different ways that they were raised versus how you were raised. Their society was different than the one you live in. And so there's all those things to be considered. And so the very first thing I told myself is that I'm not going to take this personally. Like I don't have to own the pain that I have. Because what so many people do is they have the pain and they blame their parents.
Yeah.
And while certainly the parents may be responsible for some or all in some situations, depending on what we're talking about, what you do is you lock in the story that they're responsible for it. And then you make them your enemy, right? And you're sitting here saying, I want them to be my friend. Well, how can your enemy be your friend? So you have to de-enemy them. I don't know if that's actually a word, but you have to like de-enemy them, right? And you can't take it personal. The next thing, so for example, with my dad, with him, there was a lot of abuse. It was a lot of physical abuse, like a lot. And so with him, I learned to just not speak to him. When I went to college, I just didn't speak to him. Stayed in college, studied communications, played football, minding my business. 6 years went by. This was like my second year out of college. And I can't remember who in my life this was. So I have to give credit to both. It was either my girlfriend at the time or it was my auntie Sil. I can't remember which one. And one of them said something along the lines of like, hey, your dad's not going to be around forever. And you walk around mad, full of anger. It's very possible that you can release your anger by healing your relationship with him. Mm-hmm. And what do you think my response to him was? It was an angry response. Mm-hmm. You know, and when I actually, like in that moment, I couldn't realize it, you know, but when I came back from it, I was like, damn, they told me I'm full of anger. The person that spends the most time with me, I'm full of anger. And then I could heal it, but I responded in an angry way, you know? Mm-hmm. And so my dad was trying to have a relationship with me. And what ended up happening was, because he would always send a card. And I just always felt like, oh, this is phony. Mm-hmm. Like, you caused me so much pain, so much trauma. You send a card. Mm-hmm. Like, that's not real. That's fake to me, you know? And finally, I began to not take my story personally. Mm. Like, I was traumatized. Mm-hmm. I was abused. I was this. Because you're making it personal. Mm-hmm. And you're making that your story. And then finally, I just kind of told myself, like, hey, like, these are things that just happen. Mm. Like, it just happened, you know? And and let me be careful with how I'm saying this. I am not saying, I just want to be mindful of, like, the fact that we all have different relationships with quote unquote abusers. Yeah. And that everybody has the right to explore it how they want. I'm only sharing my experience. Okay. I just want to say that. And so I called my dad after he had been trying it, like 6 years, no contact. And I said, hey, you know, I know you want to have a relationship with me. Now, this is very important. But for us to have a relationship, like, there's some terms I need you to understand. And there's some conversations that we need to have. Are you open to that? I asked him. Before we even could repair the relationship, I asked him if he was open to the terms that I have mm-hmm. and to the conversations that I needed to have. Mm-hmm. That's preparing for the great fight. Mm-hmm. And he was like, yeah, of course. I said, okay, cool. I said, so here's the deal. I'm going to come to your house and we're going to have a barbecue. Okay. Because what happens is, you know, people want to have these like deep conversations and be super serious. And it's like, it ain't the right container for it. Like, you know, but if you have a barbecue with somebody.
De-armor them. It's like, you know, we're taking, you know what I mean?
It's like, come on, we got some ribs, we got some wings, you know, it's like we got to have a good time. Yeah. Like it gives space for the conversation, right? Yes. And so he was like, all right, cool. And I told him, I said, but I have to cook. My dad was a chef. Okay. So this was me taking power from him. I was like, I have to cook because you wanted to cook and he's like, I'm cooking. Don't talk about how it tastes. Just enjoy it. This was a test. And he was like, all right. He's like, okay. So I get over there and it was my younger brother and sister. I have 4 younger brothers and sisters, actually all of us. And my grandfather came. He was there. My dad was there. And, at first it wasn't even about the thing we needed to talk about. Mm-hmm. It was like small talk. Sure. Right? Everyone's like, oh, I hate small talk. No, stop. Don't think like that. You need small talk. Small talk gets you into deep talk. And you need to be able to flow through it all with everybody. So first it was like, hey, how you doing? Nice car. Good to see you. Nice haircut. You know, it's shallow. Yeah. And same thing. I was like, oh, wow, your house looks nice. And it was that small talk. So I get to cooking, a couple hours go by and then, we get into the meat and potatoes, as they say, right? Mm-hmm. And basically what I told him was like, hey, look, for us to have a relationship, you have to understand that the way you thought you were disciplining me and teaching me and trying to get me to be a great man, you were actually causing me the most pain I've ever felt in my life. Mm-hmm. And that's how I felt. And I told him flat out, like no sugarcoat, told him exactly what it was. And, he was receptive to that. Now, what I had to understand is that he came from a society where that was the norm. Mm-hmm. So to him, it's trauma. He never heard of that. Yeah, yeah. Abuse. He's like, that's not abuse. That's discipline. He was in the United States military. Yeah. So for him, that's discipline. But for me, it was abuse. Right. So I had to name my experience, but I had to hold my frame. Mm-hmm. I didn't go in there cursing at him. I didn't go in there yelling at him. Right. Because a lot of people go to these conversations and they can't have composure because of the emotions.
Or they're caretaking for their parent, not wanting to upset them.
Right. No, I don't care if you get upset. You need to know the truth, because if we're going to have relationship, it has to be based in truth.
Yes.
Right. So told him the whole thing. And then I set my boundaries. I said, look, moving forward, this is what I need from you. Like, this is how I need you to show up. I don't need money. I just need space. I just need time.
Yeah.
I need you to be healthy. I need to know that I can call you and you're going to give me some good advice, because my dad was really smart. And, those are my terms.
Yeah.
And he was like, whatever you need.
Wow.
Then he apologized. He was accountable for it. Now, I did the same thing with my mom. However, there was no barbecue. My mom wasn't with the barbecue situation, but I pretty much followed the same framework with my mom. And so both of those relationships healed. And then me and my dad relationship got really good until he passed in 2014. And then me and my mom's relationship right now is it's solid. It's the best it's ever been. Yeah.
Wow. That's incredible. And such an encouragement and inspiration for people to have hope that can actually happen for them.
Yeah.
I was sitting in this chair last week doing a solo episode, and I was telling a similar, my story about losing my mom and how that, gave me this perspective shift. And we can have, whether it's age or death or an illness or having a child be born or all these moments that give us new perspective on life. And I was like, there was a point in my life where I had to really come to terms with my truth. What is my truth? Not what is my truth based on what your truth is or what you think of me, but who am I? Do I know who I am? Do I like who I am and how I'm living? And then once I like who I am and how I'm living, then I can make choices that are powerful, rooted in that. And I was saying, I didn't want to walk around in the world with wearing masks and being fake and acting like we're good when we're not, and acting like this is a great experience when you know what I mean? I want something real. I want something authentic. These are my values that I've learned over years. It's taken me, years to get there, but I want something real. And in order to have something real, you must have truth. Yes. And truth, my dad would always say, sometimes truth hurts. And that's okay. But can we make space for that to be true and there be a space for repair at the same time?
Yeah.
Because part of that is understanding at some point in your life, there's you start to see your parent not just as your parent, but as a human, as a human being that has their own traumas and their own experience and their own neglect and all of those things. And you see how it gets passed down, even with your experience with your dad. A man that abuses his child has anger on some level. And then now you're I'm internalizing that anger.
Right.
You know what I mean? So in order for me not to pass that, I have to deal with my anger, but also it heals back up the line too, if we're willing and brave, because sometimes it feels like when you're having to go to your parent, I'm being the adult here. I'm having to parent my parent.
Right.
But there's a point, something that's helped me is understanding the difference between my soul and my ego. And my ego is the one that's feels so betrayed and so hurt and so wronged, because my ego is how I'm seen by the world, even if it's not just I'm the best at this or I'm the most beautiful or most successful. It can be I'm the most betrayed or the most wronged or most abused. And we hold on to that as our kind of identity. And there are certainly reasons why we don't get along with everybody in life. But on a soul level, I was listening to Ram Dass East Forest song today, and it was the souls love each other. Souls love each other. When you get beyond the identity and the story and all the me, you did this to me. The souls, we just love each other, and all of that stuff kind of falls away. But the truth is we're living in a 3D world dealing with human beings, not everybody's soul. You know what I mean? Both can exist. Right. And there's sometimes we fumble through that process of learning to repair and come to peace and find peace within our relationships, not just with our parents, but within a lot of our relationships. Yeah. I want to talk about the great work? Like, what is that mean to you?
Yeah. So that's one of in my new book coming out, Live the Life You Deserve. That's one of my chapters in there. And if I had to summarize it in one word, it would be preparation. And it means a lot to me because I'm a former athlete.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still an athlete, but I was officially on the team at some other point in life, And I do coaching. I do coaching with a lot of people. And I'll give you an example. Like, I'm working with this lady right now, and she has her, her full-time job, but there's something in her soul that's like, hey, I'm not even doing the right job.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm just doing a job that it's not something she's passionate about. And she does work. She does rehab work with people who have been like addicted to like heroin, but she's done it on the side.
Okay.
And so she wants to basically do that rehab work full time. But the main job that she's doing right now is not even in alignment with her. Mm-hmm. She's doing that just for income. Mm-hmm. And so the work that we're doing is the great work, which is preparing her for the life where she's living in alignment with what she wants to do.
Her truth.
Which is working with the heroin people, healing them, providing that container for them to get over their addiction, providing that container for them to find new habits. That's what she's meant to do. She knows it, but she's not there yet. Right? And it's like, well, as a coach, you could just say, okay, go do it. But that's not how people are wired. People aren't wired that way. People need to get prepared for the great work of doing that work. And so a lot of what we're doing right now is I'm calling her out on all her excuses, because every time we talk, there is one. So I'm calling her out on all her excuses so she can see it. So mirroring her excuses. And then I'm speaking life into her, because a lot of people just need to be spoken into. Right? A lot of people don't need the X's and O's of everything. Some people just need to hear, you can do this. Yeah. You got this. I believe in you. Yeah. Give it your best shot. Just like a 4-year-old kid. I have a 4-year-old kid. Like, come on, just go for it. Right? A lot of people just need to hear that. So I speak the life into her. And then the other thing that I tell her is, so hold on one second. In December this year, when I was in Peru working at warrior retreats, I had a little mushroom ceremony by myself, and I'm just like sitting in this hammock and I'm looking at the clouds, and I realized like I need my own personal declaration, my own manifesto, if you will. And a lot of the times when we give ourselves those type of assignments, we try to find it right away or create it right away. And so for me, this is a year-long journey. I'm working on it for the whole year. That's my whole year commitment, is to create my manifesto. All right. Ooh, so I have 5
you're sparking
pillars.
Something in me right now.
I've been doing it the whole year.
Okay.
Right. That way I don't have the pressure to have like, all right, got to get this. Nah. Like,
it's forced.
Let me integrate this great work. Get me the manifesto. It's going to be 1 year's work of creating the manifesto. That'll be my manifesto until I'm gone. Right. So I got 4 or 5 pillars right now. I'll share some tomorrow.
Okay.
All right. But one of the ones that I have, and I'm going to come back to the coach, I'm going to tie it all together. One of the opening manifesto is live the life you deserve. That's why I titled the book, Live the Life You Deserve. It's a mantra. So my client, okay? So going back to my client, okay? This all ties together. So I have a call with her yesterday, actually. Or I thought it was 2 days ago. It was yesterday. And, I just flat out told her, because she was going through, this is what people do. They're like, well, how do you do this? And how do you do this? And how do you do this? Well, if I do this, I can do this. The how is always secondary.
Yes. You
have to make the decision. And so I left her with the question. I said, for you, in your situation, you have a great job. You don't have to leave it. You make more than enough to take care of your life. You are suffering though. You're suffering because there's something inside of you that's saying go a different direction. And so I want to leave you with this. For you, what does it look like to live the life that you deserve? And I'll leave it there. So we get off the call, and we're scheduled to do like 1 a month. All right, we get off the call. As I'm driving up here to Vegas, she texts me, and she goes, "Hey, can I buy another call from you?" And I was like, "Sure." Now it's set up like that's actually a strange request because it's set up where we talk monthly, So I was like, "Yeah, sure. Like, when do you want to do it?" She goes, "It needs to be tonight." I was like, "Tonight?" She's like, "Yeah, tonight." And I was like, "Are you okay?" She goes, "Yes, I have to live the life I deserve, and I need to talk to you about my decisions." And I said, "Okay,
Be ready.
So
yeah.
That's the great work.
Yes.
It's preparing the mind. It's chipping away at the mind. It's chipping away at the weakness, chipping away at the excuses. It's armoring your mind, armoring your heart. If there is a certain skill set acquired, I want to be a pilot. Okay, then you need a certain skill set. Like whatever is needed to be acquired for you to armor yourself so you can go to war, because life is war. Life is war. You have to battle. You have to fight. You have to fight to get what you want. And that's why I say it's the great work, because fighting is great work. It's hard. It's hard to fight. It's hard to know how to fight. It's hard to know when not to fight.
Yeah.
It's hard to know when to be on offense, when to be on defense. Right. And so that's the great work.
Yeah. I call it, fighting the good fight, the fight of your heart, the fight, like what is worth fighting for in life, right? Like a life well lived, a life full of meaning, something that matters to you, that like gives you a reason to want to get up and to use your gifts and your talents and your time and your energy for something that you care about. And there's so many people that are living in a place where they feel really lost, and I think it's a gift to like know what you want and then start the good work, the great work, to start to prepare for that, to like say yes to that. And it takes a lot of courage, it takes preparation, and it takes, one of the things I wrote down is trust. Because when you're making that transition from a stable, consistent, known path to the unknown, there inevitably is like this abyss that you see and you're like, okay, how am I going to get over there? I'm over here. There's this huge thing in between. And for me, life has always said, how much do you trust me? How much do you trust me that I haven't given you this desire and this calling if I wasn't going to give you the tools to help you fulfill it? And as human beings, we want the evidence first. We want to know.
Yeah, and it's like
we want the guarantee. It doesn't always
work that way.
We want the guarantee. We want the control because we're afraid. It's survival. It's deeply ingrained in us. It's like, am I going to be okay? And it's like, if you knew you were going to be okay, would you do it? You know what I mean? It's like, yes. Okay. Well, you're not going to die. And when I was playing that scenario out that your client was doing for myself, I was like, worst case scenario is I can't pay my bills. I give it all I have. I learn a lot. And then I go back to a job that I don't really like.
Right. That you're already qualified for. You can get another one.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, so I'm living, what's the worst case scenario that I have to like, that I have to go back to a job? Like I'm living my worst case scenario right now. So why not give myself a chance? But then the other thing is like for people who don't know what they want, like how do you help people in that work? Because I know there are a lot of people that come to you and they're like, I know I need help. And you're like, okay, well, what do you want to create? And they're like, everything or nothing. There's no clarity.
Yeah, there's a couple ways you can do that. So the first is you get off YouTube, you get off TikTok, you get off Instagram, you stop looking at other people, you go for a long walk. You go for a long walk and you look outside and you be with nature. All right, so that's one way that will work for you. It will literally get your brain moving to possibilities, to ideas. Another way is, you ever been on a field trip before? Like back in school?
Yeah.
My favorite field trip, we went to the apple orchard in Illinois. And also there was another one, we went to a farm. And on the apple orchard, I mean, it was amazing. We made cider, we made apple juice. We had all the apples on the farm. We got to milk the cows. We got to make butter. We got to make biscuits, right? We got to just tend to the farm. And those are what? Those are adventures. Like you have to go on more adventures. But it can't be like the theme of it, the energy of it can't be fake for other people. It can't be performative. It can't be, hey guys, look at me. I'm in
a picture
wherever I'm at. Right. It can't be based in that. It has to be I'm curious about this. You know, like for example, my one of my friends, his name is Trevor Bohm. He's a men's coach. And I text him, I was like, hey man, just thinking about you. You're in my mind. He's in my men's group. And I was like, hey, let me know when I can call you this week. I just want to call and say what's up. And he was like, yeah, we can talk when I get back from Ireland. I'm like, what are you doing? He lives in Colorado. So I was like, what are you doing in Ireland? And he sends me like 9 photos. And he's over there like making swords and making butcher knives and making knives. And I was like, dude, you're over there just making knives? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, all right, cool, man. Like, cool. Like, but that's not his job, And so even if you feel lost and you're trying to find yourself through career, you're still going to need hobbies. Like you're still going to have to, right? So you have to adventure. You have to go on an adventure. So that could mean trying different foods, going to different museums. That could mean, hey, I've been comfortable living in my same city for 22 years. Let me just go somewhere for a year. It doesn't have to be forever. Let me just go here for a year. You know, just putting yourself in different spaces where you can be exposed.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the same walls, the same streets, the same people who have the same mindsets, you look at the same social media feed, you look at you go to the same job. What happens is there's nothing wrong with that, but you can lose your creativity.
100%.
That lifestyle provides safety for you, which we need. We need safety, but you can lose your creativity. So if you're saying to yourself, like, man, I'm lost, like, you have to adventure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. I always say the quickest way to transformation is to change your environment. Like get out of your standard environment. Cause that like losing your creativity, I know there's like a dullness that comes into your life. It's like you lose your spark, you lose the color, the vibrancy because everything looks like everything else. Right. It's like, oh, here's another video that looks just like the last video I saw, or here's another person doing the same, you know what I mean? And so we're sort of brainwashing ourselves into I think I want what I'm seeing online.
Yeah, but the people you see online don't even know what they want.
Exactly.
They're all just mimicking each other.
Exactly.
So you have to be the one to say, all right, well, what do I want? And that's one of the main questions I ask my coaching clients. When they come on board, part of our onboarding process, I ask them, I say, what do you want? Here's what happens. People are vague. Oh, I want money, or I want, okay. And then I say, all right, now go deeper. Now they can't answer the question when you ask them to go deeper. Now what comes up when you ask them what they want, you ask them to be more specific, then their trauma comes up, their limitations comes up, their pain comes up. Then I say, okay, let's act like that's not there. Let's act like there's no past. Let's act like there's only today, only today, and only your future. And if there's no past, now what do you want? And then when you like clear it for people, then they're like, oh, well, that way, then it's you can see them open up. It's like, oh, well, I want to do this and I want to do that. Like, okay, there's your North Star. Yeah. There's your North Star right there.
Yeah, that's so powerful. And this goes hand in hand with another topic I want to talk to you about, which is play. Because like you're talking about exploration and going to Ireland and like playing with swords and making swords and going to and like having these adventures on the farms and different things and following your curiosity. Yeah. I hear that and I think of exploration, I hear of adventure, and I hear of play, which as adults, we don't do well and some of my things I think about in terms of play, because this has been a journey of me back. I was that person that we just described. That was me 7 years ago. And over the several years, I've come back to myself, my truth, what my desires are, not based on everybody else. And then there was a journey back to this state, the state of play, which I've realized is like, it's our natural state. Before we learn, we have to survive, right? We come into the world and we're just curious and learning and sponging and like expressing self-expression in play or like natural. And that's how we learn and grow. And then we hit a ceiling and we're like, oh, I've learned enough and I don't need to go explore anymore because this will be enough to survive. And when I think about play, it's like, there are a couple factors that I think about. One is I know I'm playing when I'm present and I don't know what time it is or where my phone is. Like, that's how I know I'm like really playing. Yeah. And it's like, and I'm not doing it. You said it's not performative. I'm not being critiqued. Right. It's not about getting a grade or doing it well. It's just for the sake of doing the activity and having an experience with it. Because when you think about it, like when we grow up, I went to an elementary school. We didn't get grades. It was the best experience.
Where was this?
It was in Alabama.
Oh, okay.
And then the first grade I ever got was in 6th grade when I went to middle school. And it was the best thing my parents ever did for me because I fully got to express and explore my creativity. I danced, I sang, I did art, I learned languages. And then as soon as I hit 6th grade, I realized I'm being critiqued. All of this is being looked at and monitored and measured based on how I measure up to everybody else and based on these like weird learning like expectations of how much I can memorize. Yep. Now it's not about how much can you create and explore and share your ideas. Now it's how much can you memorize and regurgitate? And that's what we've become as a society as adults, people that can regurgitate everybody else's stuff, but we have no creative thoughts of our own. And so for me, play is a sacred place where I'm just getting to be myself without someone looking over my shoulder and being like, you did this wrong, you did this right. Right. And that gives me the permission to see what I really enjoy. What is your take on that and how that plays into this whole conversation?
I mean, it's been a whole arc for me. And this is one of the chapters of my book, so I appreciate you asking because this is important. And I was the kid that I was told, man, you play too much, man. You're always playing. I was always like joking. I was always kidding. I was always on the bike. I remember when I was a kid, I would leave my house. And this is when the rules were, you leave the house, you come back in a few hours and check in with your mom, let your mom know you're still safe, get water. You go out as long as you want it, but you had to be in when the sun went out, right? Yep. So that's how I grew up. So, I mean, every day was an adventure. We'd be on bikes. We'd play basketball. We'd jump rope, hopscotch, double dutch. We'd play football, soccer, tennis. I mean, everything. We had a swimming pool. We had, everything. Water hose, super soakers, Nerf footballs. Like, I had that childhood. I grew up in the 90s,
Me too.
It was lit, go to the side of the house and turn on the faucet, the water hose. Yeah, I had the great child. Ice cream man comes, 50 cent, let me get a taco, a little taco, the ice cream. I mean, I had a great childhood. And then my dad, he was military. So he was the one telling me like, you play too much. I get up at 4 a.m. every day. Before you're up, I've already cleaned the house. I did 100 push-ups, 100 sit-up and ran a mile. You just getting up. I'm like, Dad, it's 6:30. Like, I'm up early too. Yeah, but nah, I beat you. I already beat you. And I'm like, what's wrong with this dude? Like, it's 6:30. I'm in school, right? And so what he was trying to do was like make me have discipline, which is important and it is necessary, especially if you're a man. You have to have discipline. A lot of the issues that men have that I'm coming across that I'm coaching, they lack discipline. That's like the number one thing. And so my dad really trained the discipline out of me, So even when I started sports, when I started football, I started football because it was fun. Then when I got to Pee Wee, then when I got to high school football, it was like, it felt more like a job. I thought of it more like a job, So it was like your only assignment really was practice at 3:00 and then the games. But for me, I would go in and lift before school because, I picked up on what my dad was teaching me. And so I would get up at 5, go to the school and lift and train. Then instead of going to lunch with my friends for junior, senior year, like I would just go to the study room and watch film to get smarter. Then I would go to practice, so I wasn't treating it just as play. It was like play and discipline and performance, right? And then when I got to college and I was playing college football, it wasn't play. It was a business. It was work. It was like, oh, I'm tired. Oh, go to practice. Practice, study tables, go get treatment. Then you have all this classwork. It wasn't enjoyment at all. And then I did play arena football for 3 years. None of that was fun. Everything was performance. How many catches, how many tackles, these analytics. I mean, it was ruined. The play wasn't there. I no longer enjoyed it. So I retired after 3 years. I wasn't good at it anyways. I was just there. I was good enough to be on the team, but I wasn't like that good. And, we got to be real. Some people aren't self-aware, like I wasn't that good. And I remember when I made that transition, I went and started working at Verizon Wireless. And that's where I was able to use my skill set of persuasion and speaking and connecting with people. And someone thought, hey, this guy would be good at sales. Well, I wasn't good. I was great. I was elite. I was on path to be a sales director at Verizon, which would have been a great career. A lot of money to be made. But there was no play. There was no play there. It was all work. It was all business. It was all a very fake material world that was like gray and dull. And there was no personality. There was no fun. If HR comes around, you better stiffen up. If the directors are around, you better make sure your shirt and tie is on right because they're going to look at you and, it was all fake to me. And I just remember thinking, like, I remember my store manager. She was great. And the big people came, the big managers came, and she's like, hey, we need to do all these things that we don't normally do. We need to clean this up and we need to move this and change this. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, like, if we need to have this stuff done, why don't we just have this stuff done? if we have to change everything about who we are when our leaders are coming, why are they our leaders and why are we not doing what we're supposed to do? Why are we not being like, it just didn't sit. I had a cognitive dissonance. I had pure conflict. And what ends up happening is,
so we're doing this for show, essentially.
Yeah, this is all a game. Yeah. It's all fake. And it just felt, it like corrupted my soul. And so I became a manager. I became a sales manager, and I had my team of people that I hired. I had my assistant managers that I hired. And I'm like, no, we're not doing anything fake. First thing I told them was the shirt sales and tie, the ties we had, I said, they got to go. We got to get rid of that. Like, we're in here, we're working with cell phone stuff. Like, we don't need the shirts and ties, right? And we got t-shirts and we got, the Verizon branded t-shirts and jeans. And that was cool because I like to be comfortable. I like to be able to work out at any moment of the day. That's just how I am. And next thing I did was the silly sales process they had. I said, we're just going to get rid of that. When the customer comes in, I want you to just greet them, say hello, see who they are, ask them how they're doing. We're not going through this whole sales process as soon as you meet someone. Just say hello, acknowledge them as a human being. Okay. Another thing I did that I changed right away was when I came in, there was like an onboarding process that they wanted us to have with our employees. Like, all right, check this, check this. I'm not doing any of that. When you come in, how are you? How was your day? How are your kids? Did you eat? What's on your mind? What's on your heart? I treated everyone in the space like a human and cultivated a culture of, we're just going to be a human being. When my district managers had to come in, guess what? We didn't have to do anything fake. You want to know why? Because we did all of our work, because that was the standard. Yeah. The standard was whatever things we need to have, we're going to do. So when people come, it's nothing fake. I'm not about to stress myself out to perform to you, Yeah. And what I realized is I brought play to that corporate space. And it helped me realize, like, man, this is how life needs to be. Like, it has to be fun, because when I'm not there, I'm having fun outside. Everywhere else I go, I'm with my friends. We're arguing about who's, the better basketball player, football team. We're having fun. When I'm not there, I'm going on adventures. I'm taking trips. But if I go to this workspace, it's like they want me to be a particular way. And I said, no, I need to be able to play everywhere. That's not absent of the discipline, of work ethic, of showing up, but I need to be able to play. And I had this guy, his name was Josh, and Josh was like, well, I have an issue with like wearing a black t-shirt because I want to dress up. And I was like, look, man, some people look at fashion as play. So if you want to dress up and that's you being your unique self, do it. And he was like, but it's going to cause issues because everybody else has t-shirts and I want to dress up. I said, no, you do what's going to make you feel good, And sure enough, he did it, right? So here's what happens. I leave the company. And I really just created a full life of play. I was doing personal training. I was an author. This is when my career had first started, like 14 years ago. I was an author, and we'll wake up with no alarm clock. When you first leave, I was like waking up with no alarm clock. I was still getting up about 6:37 because my dad, my whole life, and I just played all day.
Isn't it interesting how, like, when you go from such a rigid structure, it's like, I think of it as like a little kid. If you like grow up and your parents never let you have any junk food in the house, and you had to have and then you go off to college, you're like, I'm gonna go crazy. You know what I mean?
That's what happened.
For a moment, there's like a time.
where but it was like I had more, since I already had the discipline instilled, like nothing really lacked. I would just wake up. When I first started, like year one, like I didn't really know how to structure things, right? So I would just wake up and like, oh, okay, I'll go to the grocery store. Get my food, walk around, eat. I really just got to live a life where I went more intuitively based on what I needed. And that was 14 years ago, and I haven't went back to anything else that disrupts my ability to have play. I've obviously brought on a lot of responsibility. I've done assignments, done all the work I needed to do, but play has to be a big part of my life.
I couldn't agree more, because I think in that state of play, when we're infusing color back into things, you know what I mean? Where we're saying, like, I'm welcome here, not just this version of me is welcome here, right?
Let me share my favorite way people can play. If you're like, man, I'm not leaving my job, because it sounds like maybe he's saying I need to leave my job to play. Nah, you don't have to. The best way you can play, I told you my dad was a chef, is with your food. All right? No fast food. No BS. Let me get food, because slow down. Slow food. Get back to the connection with your food. Get back. No ordering off the app for them to drop your food off because they bring you bad fruits anyways. I've tried it. They bring you bad fruits. They don't check the veggies.
The produce is not it.
It's like, nah. All right. Get the groceries.
Yeah.
Be intentional about every meal. Be slow. One thing we do in my household, part of the culture is when it's dinner time, we're all sitting at the table. We don't have to talk, you know, but we're going to make sure the TVs are off. The phones are off. It's not coming to the dinner table. That's the one meal that I make that commitment for because, you know, sometimes we do the intermittent fasting thing. Some kids got to go, you know, so breakfast is not a hit or miss. Lunch, if I'm traveling, I'm working remote. Dinner, we're home. Everybody's home. We have dinner together. I call it slow dinners, you know. So take our time. We make our food. I mean, we season it good. Yeah. Flavors are good. You know, it's like, put that back into the house. Put that back into your life. Just that space, like really playing with food. You know, I think that's a great way.
I think it is too. And it's like, it drives a couple things. One, what you just said, like phone's not on, like TV's not on, we're slowing down, we're having a meal. One that draws presence is like, it is like, saying we're going to be present here and this is and there's an intention. We're going to gather and we're going to have a meal and we're slowing down. That is essential in our society, in our culture where we're just like boom, 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 boom. When you create space, whether that's over a meal or for yourself or when it creates space in your life to plug back in and to connect your food, to connect to each other, to connect to your, whatever it might be, to connect to your breath. We did that right before this show. And that is like this connection you get plugged back into the source of life, of creativity, which you said so many of us are like cut off from our creativity because we haven't plugged into the source of it, which is this moment where we can actually connect to the field of intention that has everything available to it, to have a unique thought, to have a new idea. You know what I mean? And if we're so busy and so numb and so checked out and distracted and notifications here and there, where's their space to hear or feel or be in the moment? There isn't. And a lot of us, we fill every moment because we don't want to be, you know, some of those darker things that we don't want to address, that we don't want to feel. But I know like you value the play and the light and the creativity and this expression, but you also value the importance of like looking at your dark shadows and the parts that you'd rather avoid and distract from. Can you speak to that and like that's role in the journey of as well?
Oh yeah. I believe in, and I try to preach integration.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you were just alluding to one of the things I try to teach, which is making sure that all of your brothers and sisters, the versions of you, are able to sit at the table. All pieces of you, right? So the version of you that's addicted to porn, if that's your issue, the version of you addicted to alcohol, the version of you that spends too much money, the version of you that actually uses people instead of cherishing them. They're like, yeah, we're going deep. Like we're really naming it, right? All those versions of you need to sit at the table. The version of you full of fear, full of shame, full of regret, full of envy, that version of you has to be present. Because when we hide those versions of ourselves, when we refuse to integrate them, they hurt us, they haunt us. They make deeper wounds. And so when you can really sit with and acknowledge like, man, like I'm not good with spending my money. I'm not good with a budget. Guess what happens? You actually open yourself up to actually what you need, which is help or guidance or someone who is good to come and help you. But when you keep it to yourself, like for me in my life, it was anger. You know, my junior year of high school, I was my sophomore and freshman year of high school, I was suspended for 43 days for fighting. I wasn't fighting because I wanted to fight. I was fighting because I was full of anger. My wound was guiding me at that moment. Yeah. You know, I sat down with my mom, my assistant principal, and the superintendent of the school at the end of my sophomore year. And they said, hey, you know, if you don't change this path, you're going to be dead or in jail. You have too much talent. You have too much great energy to end up on that path. So what are you going to do about it? And that's when I said, okay, I need to play sports full time. I need to take school more serious. I do have a lot of pain. I did, or at that time, I don't have any now. No, I got pain now. Inflation's causing pain now. You know what I mean?
I feel that.
$11 eggs. You know what? I paid last summer.
Keep it real.
That had me hurt.
Keep
And my
it real.
son loved strawberries. They were like $7. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
$18 for eggs and strawberries. Now that's pain. That's
It
pain
is.
right there. But
I love that. I love that you said that.
but like, you know, back then, like I had real anger issues, you know, so I had to integrate that. So now it's like, you can't trigger me.
Yeah.
You know, obviously,
I've faced it.
Obviously, I'm a black man, you know, so you would think, oh, if you call me the N-word, that's going to trigger me. It won't trigger me. I have complete control in here. I have you cannot trigger me.
That's real mastery.
Yeah. The only way you could actually trigger me is if you put your hands on me. Other than that, no words could hurt me. Other than that, no situation can hurt me. There's a way out. I've already survived the worst. So there's a way out. So no matter what happens in life, if I lose my business, I can find a way out. I can find a way out. If I'm broken up with, I can heal. Anything that I lose, I can rebuild in a better way. Yeah. You know? And so that's what I believe is once you learn and practice, okay, let me integrate these pieces, you do that great work and you chip away, you become whole. Healing means wholeness. So how are we walking around saying, I want to be healed. I want to be healed, but I only want people to see half a version of me. You only get when I'm happy. That's why, you know, when my clients, this is something I want everybody to take. When I get on the phone with my clients, right? Small talk. What do we say? Well, how are you doing? What does everybody say? Yeah, I'm good. It's like, no, you're not. Let's be real. Like, what are you going through? What's on your mind? It doesn't have to be negative. What are you going through? So when people ask me and they say, how are you doing? I drop into it. Oh man, I went for a walk this morning. I'm thirsty. I'm like, oh man, actually I'm stressed out. Whatever's authentic, I'm going to tell you. Yeah. I don't care how I'm judged. Yeah. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how I'm judged. People are like, oh, well, I'm not going to be authentic because other people are going to judge me. Why do you care about them judging you when those people judging you probably don't even like themselves? So here you are seeking approval from someone who doesn't like themselves. That's a trap. That's a game. Yeah. I'm not going to play that game. I'm going to play the I'm authentic game. I am what I am. You love me, you hate me. Guess what? Life goes on. Yeah. Yeah. It's
so powerful. Like having that conversation about all these different parts of you and saying like, you're welcome at the table, and not just that you're welcome, like you're needed. You need to come to this table in order for me to be a whole individual. And that we're going to sit here as long as, and there's going to be a name tag on that seat for you until you show up. But
I like that.
You know what I mean? Name tag, angry self, jealous self, you know what I mean? But this speaks to something, which is, I think, shame. You know, when you shared that vulnerable story about you in high school about, you know, sitting with the principal and everybody and saying like, this is your path. What are you going to choose? And how hard it is for people to admit they need help, to admit they're having a struggle, is to be made vulnerable, is to make yourself vulnerable. And we have this idea that, like you were saying, we're only acceptable in our perfection, in our wholeness. And when I'm healed, then I can come out of the shadows. And so all these people, I believe, like if you're at home and you're resonating with this, like ask yourself, like, are you trying to heal in isolation? Like in the shadows and quiet, but not sharing any of what that looks like with anyone in your, like no one knows what you're actually healing from or what that process is like. Because in my experience, we can only take ourselves so far in isolation. We can until we have to come back into relationship with people and actually practice what we've learned to see, am I still triggered? Can somebody's words still hurt me? Do I actually believe the things I say I believe? Right. And that's only tested in the fire of being out in the world and being your authentic self. But you never test that if you stay hidden and stay small.
Yeah, you haven't healed. You haven't been in the fire yet. You haven't tested it. You know, the dangerous thing about healing in isolation is when you come out, you're going to feel like you never need anybody. It's going to make it almost impossible to connect. So it's important to allow people to witness you. To allow people to see like, all right, well, you know, everything's not going great right now, but you're working through it. I've done that at all phases of my life, whether other people perceive it's been everything has been great or perfect, or I'm in the bottom, I'm in depression, I'm broke, I'm hurt. I've allowed people to witness me. Like, this is what it is.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah.
And what that has helped me do, even though it's not easy, that's not easy. But two things I think about is, one, why do I give permission to everyone else in my life to be a human being, but I'm expected to be like, to make mistakes, to go through things, to not have it all figured out. Everyone else is allowed, but not me. Right. Yeah. First of all, why am I holding myself to an unrealistic expectation that is not a real truth in reality?
Yeah.
And two, it's like, can I just find the courage to, like, if I find the courage to show my brokenness and my mess to people who are close, that are safe, they just, you know what I mean? They're in my circle. I can share this with them and they're not going to leave me. They're not going to judge me. What I have found when I did that is those parts of me that I thought were unlovable, that were so messy, that shame wants to hide. Shame is the thing that wants to keep it all a secret, that doesn't want to admit you're in debt, or doesn't want to admit that you fucked up and cheated, or whatever it is. But when that is brought into the light, it doesn't have this power over you. And I've been held in those moments, and it's helped me heal on such a deep level, because I realize there's no part of me that's unlovable. Mm-hmm. Even the parts I think are the most unlovable, like, they're received. And
the
you're
other
like,
thing
you're human.
Too is the perception you have of yourself might be false, because you might have a perception that someone else gave you, or that some wound gave you. You know, like, I remember in college, to me, I was dating the prettiest girl at the school. I thought she was the hottest girl I had ever seen at that point in my life. But when I start to get to know her, she's insecure about how she looks. And I remember having, like, a very intimate conversation with her. And I'm like, hey, so, like, where did you learn this, that you're not the prettiest girl? Because you are.
Who taught you?
Like,
you're not beautiful.
I waited and searched this whole campus 2 weeks. I saw you and I was like, yep, there she is. And then I went up to her and talked to her, and I was like, yeah, like, I want you. And she was just like, yeah, like, my mom said it to me. My dad said it to me. Other girls when I was younger made fun of certain features I had. And I was like, damn, like, you're an adult now, and you've held on to that story. So sometimes the things you don't like about yourself aren't even true. And that's another thing that we have to reflect on. It might not be true.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's like, so I love your concept. And this is like such how I try to live my life. It's like, truth is the North Star. Can we hold truth as the thing that we move towards at all times? And if we can have that as our guiding light, whatever falls away as a consequence of the truth isn't needed. Right. And it's okay. You know, even if it's like, my truth is that, like, I don't know, whatever it is that you like. And if that makes somebody leave you, like, that's great. Good for you, because now you can find somebody who does connect with that thing. Yeah. You know what I mean? Versus having relationships and connections that are built on people coming together mask to mask instead of face to face.
Built on that lie.
Yeah.
And that's why there's that conflict present.
Yeah, absolutely. What else is, like, on your heart right now? I know tomorrow you're about to speak at Radiance Festival. Like, what's just, like, you've got this book coming out August 20th. All about how to live the life you deserve. Just, like, what's really drawing on you at the moment?
I would say I'm in a phase of my life where I have to really sharpen my tools as a warrior, because of the things that are happening around my life, not necessarily to me, but to people that I love. So, you know, I'm gonna be real and share it, because our world lacks so much authenticity. I think it would be great for people to be able to see someone sitting with, processing, dealing with things, and still being able to maintain life. And, you know, they always say death comes in threes, right? So a few months ago, one of my friends that I grew up with in college, he passed away. I'm 38. He was 38. And that started it. And that like, you know, that you just kind of think to yourself, like, oh, he's too young. Why? Like, what is his family gonna do? The daughters, like you think about it, and I don't want to sit here and pretend that we were best friends. We were not. We were great friends in college when we lived together, and we've went our ways in life. And that news came to me, and I was like, damn, like it really makes you think. Death makes you think, right? Because what it really is, death. It's a cycle. You have birth, you have deaths, you have rebirths. The next thing that happened simultaneously. And so my mother called me to let me know that she's in court litigations right now and that she's facing eviction. So that's making my shoulders carry more because I have to figure out a way to take care of what I need to take care of. The day that she called me and told me that is I have a son. I have one kid right now. That was a day that I found out we were having a miscarriage for our second kid. And I've never heard, I'm 38. I never heard anybody talk about the what happens with a miscarriage or how to handle it or how to show up for it. And so I feel when you say what's on my heart, that's what's on my heart is that situation and my partner and the feelings that she has, and like my men's group, they asked me, they're like, how do you feel? How do you feel? And I feel like how a captain feels. It's like, I have to stay dedicated to the purpose and to the mission and to holding frame and to holding strength right now and to bringing people to their greatness. Because when we talk about, live the life you deserve, it's not about making money. It's about holding space for what's real. It's about showing up when other people need you. It's about your leadership. And it's about how you handle when life punches you in the face. Right. And so for me right now, I got chills saying this because it's real for me. So for me right now, what's on my heart is processing grief, processing my leadership, processing the direction of where my family's about to go, and then figuring out how I can support the people that I love to bring them through this threshold. Because the problem is when we go through things alone, and the strongest soldiers don't come back and get us. I'm one of the strongest soldiers to ever live. So it's my turn and it's my duty with this wisdom and with this strength and with this energy to stay committed to my non-negotiables that keep me in this mindset and then stay committed to, pulling my people forward. So that's what's on my heart.
That's a real chief mentality right there. Yeah. Just really saying yes to your purpose as a man. And thank you for sharing that. Thank you for being vulnerable and giving space and a voice to the reality that there can be multiple things happening simultaneously in your life. And as a man who has worked to expand your capacity to hold it a lot and to move through a lot, like I see that, I really feel that from you. And grief has been, it's a painful teacher. It's been one of my greatest teachers. But one thing I've been reflecting on a lot lately, because grief is also something that's really present for me, is there's two things about grief that I think about a lot, which is sometimes grief feels like love with nowhere to go. And so when I feel that, I'm like, where can I channel this love into? That like, maybe that it's not, I can't give it to this person right now or whatever. Like there's something I can channel it towards myself, to my inner child, or towards my partner, or towards my family. And then that grief is love's souvenir, and let that be, for me, it's like an acknowledgement of how deeply I love. Is how deeply we're touched by the pain of grief, and that again, like you were just saying, is part of that circle.
Yeah.
Because we want to live in the highest highs of what love can feel like. Yeah. But yet when we're on that infinite loop, there is part of that infinite loop that is the grief. Yeah. I
want to just speak to the grief for 1 second.
Please.
I want to be mindful of time. I know
you're good.
We can't go all night. We could go all night, but due to the boundaries present, we're going to have to cut it soon. Yeah. And I think sometimes just as men, when things come up for us, it can be hey, let me bury myself in work.
Yeah.
And I just want to make sure that whoever's listening understands I didn't do that. I fully showed up emotionally to each one of those things. I have a men's group, and so we bring it we bring everything to the altar. With my best friend Will, I brought it to him. My best friend Juan, I brought it to him. So I'm bringing whatever I'm going through, I'm bringing it forward. So when people hear this, it's like, okay, yeah, he's releasing a book. That's great. Like, he's just here to talk about his book. No, I'm not. Because I don't want you to just talk about your success or your paycheck or how everything is going well, because that's not real for anybody. That's not real. I don't want anyone hearing this to continue to live in this fake manufactured world. I want people to take this as an invitation to be authentic. So I can, when this comes out in August, I can say, hey, let's celebrate. A book is coming out. My birthday's August 23rd. Like, it's a celebration. Like, there's so much to be excited about. And there's pain. And all of that gets to sit at the table because that's real.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I think that is a beautiful reflection. And I'm so glad you added that, because for those of you listening at home, one thing Sylvester and I share is community and support that we've built around ourselves to infiltrate ourselves with support and these like bumpers. If you're thinking about like the spiritual bumpers on your lane, it's like, so I don't fall off the tracks. I need these people, whether it's men's groups, women's groups, coaches, mentors, like whoever that, just friends, people that can speak life into you and remind you who you are. When we do, we all forget sometimes, and we get distracted and we get overwhelmed, and that makes you human. And, the power of being held in community and being held and having a space to bring your full self is so powerful. So I hope that you guys will lean into that, and that you will assess what your support systems look like as you go through your journey and as you go through your life, because we're not meant to do this alone. I know you know that, and I certainly do. The book is out August 20th. Live the Life You Deserve. Super excited for that. Is there anything else you want to share with people before we close up today about how they can pre-order the book? Anything about that we haven't shared, and then how they can stay connected to you and your work and your coaching and your podcast?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much that I'm doing, retreats, coaching, courses. I think the best is you go to my website, sylvestermcnutt.net. Okay. Come in there. There's a lot of resources, a lot of free resources. I have meditations, I have courses, I have long form articles, podcasts. Like, I really love multimedia. I studied communications in college. So I love multimedia. I love creating it. But I also love in person too, so there's retreats, there's coaching. I have a group mastermind called the Mastery Circle. That's my baby. That's my baby. We meet every 2 weeks. So if you're up for coaching, come to the Mastery Circle, or just start a relationship with me and see, see what works. As far as getting the book, Amazon's, that's the king of getting books. But this book is going to be on every platform that you get books.
Amazing.
Yeah. Audiobook. I read the audiobook.
Wow.
There's a lot of energy in there.
Let's go.
Yeah. I read it. A lot of energy. So either get the audiobook or get the real book, not the phone. I mean, you can get it on the phone. I know people need it.
Get your copy.
Get you a real one.
Get your hard copy so you can highlight
energy.
it. His stuff that y'all is stuff you want to highlight. You want to underline. You want to write your notes in the sides. I promise. Get friends, get family copies of this. Pre-order his book, because this is like, your words are wisdom. They're medicine for the soul. They really are. They're a lighthouse for people
Thank you.
on their journey to like find themselves again. So thank you for creating space for yourself to have, space to create from a place of inspiration, being inspired through the Spirit and through love and through life, and letting your story and your experiences, paint the pages of your book, and that we can learn from you. So I'm excited. Can't wait to have a copy, and just honored to have you on the show and share the space with you. Thank you for being here.
Yes.
Okay. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I trust and know that you did. If you did, tag us, take a screenshot, post it on social media, tag Sylvester and I. We would love to hear how this has touched you. And more importantly, what you're going to do going forward, how you're going to implement something you heard today. Don't let this just go in one ear and out the other. Do something with it. Make a choice. You might be at a crossroads right now in your life, and you've got two options. Which one are you going to choose? Are you going to lean in and create the life that you deserve? Or are you going to stay small and hold back? I trust that you know what to do. We'll see you next week on the Coachable Podcast.